Alright guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, I'm going to go over an article titled, My Boyfriend Won't Marry Me Even Though We Plan to Start a Family. And guys, this whole article is written by a woman, and she's writing into an advice columnist. And basically telling her story about how much of an amazing relationship she has with her boyfriend, that he's amazing and all these great things, but guess what? He doesn't want to marry her. And obviously she's losing her mind because, as you're going to find out through the article, that he's 35 years old, and guess what age she is? 30. 30 years old, which is the magic number where a lot of women start really freaking out about if they aren't married or not at least on their way to the altar. And so she's obviously losing her shit over this because she can't understand why he doesn't want to do it. But we obviously know why he doesn't want to do it, okay? I mean, he's doing the relationship thing and he's having a great time with her and all that. And she's obviously on her best behavior because she wants to get married. But, you know, I'm doing this, guys, because as time goes on, you're going to see more and more of articles like this pop up. It is going to be as common as can be. And the reason is that more and more guys are waking up to the reality that marriage is in no way, shape, or form what it's cracked up to be. It's not our grandparents' marriage, okay? Or in some cases, our parents' marriage. It just doesn't work anymore, okay? In obviously some parts of the world, it does work better than here in the West. And there are certainly exceptions, absolutely. There are people that I do know that have really good marriages and all that. It definitely had their bumps along the way, but they actually still are in love with each other after many years. But it's rare, guys. But especially, you know, people that are younger now in their 20s and 30s, it's not working. It really, you know, the divorce rate is just getting higher and higher, and the rate of people just simply not getting married anymore is getting higher as well. And so, you know, she's writing in and she wants all this pity from the advice columnist. But what I also like about this, as you're going to see, is the advice columnist definitely doesn't let her off the hook on some things that the woman obviously didn't handle right in this relationship, which you're going to see. And so what I like about this, guys, is that, you know, again, you're going to see more and more of this. Guys are waking up. And so less you're going to have guys that are unhappy and trapped in these miserable marriages because they do know that, hey, the deck is stacked against them. You know, they get divorced, they're going to lose it. You know, they're going to pretty much lose more than half guaranteed and get really screwed in terms of the divorce, in terms of assets and the house and custody of the kids if they have any and things like that, child support, alimony, all that. And they just don't want to deal with it. And not to mention the fact that even if like they stayed together, just simply the ball game changes the second she says he and she say I do, okay? Statistically, the woman usually gains weight. She stops treating the guy the same way. They stop having as much sex, if any at all. She chops her hair, puts on the mom jeans, and just it's a whole different ball game. No guy wants that. So I'm going to go through this here, and you're going to see exactly what I'm talking about. The complaining going on. Starts out saying, my boyfriend does not want to marry me. I am 30 years old, and he is 35. We have been in an amazing relationship for almost 2 years. We moved in together after 11 months of dating, and this relationship is the happiest part of my life. He is a very good man, supportive, understanding, caring, and thoughtful about my needs. So why do you want to screw that up? You get a ring on your finger? I guarantee you that this great part of her life ain't going to go on anymore, okay? And again, look what she says here. Amazing relationship. Happiest part of her life. He's a good man. He's supportive, understanding, caring, thoughtful about her needs. Look, she's got it made. So why screw it up? Well, like I said, guys, she's 30 years old. She's freaking out because remember, it isn't always about, let's be honest, it really isn't about love. It's about status. Because women want to know that they can get at least some show to their family and friends and everybody else. At least one guy is willing to commit to her. Okay? Guys, you can get the most professional carousel riders, and even they at some point want to settle down and know at least one guy wants to get serious with them, okay? Because it's not exactly difficult for a woman that's, say, a 7 and up in the looks department to get guys to sleep with them. But to get a guy to commit, that says something, okay? And they want that status, okay? It's not always about love, okay? I mean, most of the time, let's be honest, it's not about love. It's just that the biological clock, they want to breed and show to the world that, hey, some guy is willing to put a ring on my finger. Even though everything else is going great. But this guy obviously has been around the block, and he knows. She continues, The problem is that I started to have tantrums of unexplained anger or disappointment towards him for very silly reasons. I've tried to get rid of that and understand the cause. I analyze the occasions on which this happens, and it is when our friends get married. After a cheesy movie with a happy marriage ending, whenever I'm introduced as his girlfriend and not his wife, this paralyzes me. So in other words, she starts acting like a little brat and being difficult and having tantrums because she's being introduced as the girlfriend, or watches some stupid bullshit movie about the happy ending marriage and things like, or go to a wedding and stuff like that. She's 30. This is the bullshit that happens to a lot of women when they start, either they hit 30 or they're about to hit 30, and I know plenty that do it. He has told me that he does not want to ever get married. He was a coward not to tell me this news in the beginning of our relationship. He told me about 7 months in, when I was fully and irreversibly in love with him. I said he should have told me earlier, and he replied, "Let's decide now in that case. Do you want to be with me? Have family, but no marriage." He also said that I should be very certain because he doesn't want me to change my mind in 10 years. So she's complaining that he didn't talk about this in the beginning. Here's a question. Did she at all bring this up when they first started dating? A lot of women do this. A lot of women will talk about on the first date. You get women that are ready. They've reached that point. That's it. They're ready to get married and have kids and do all that. They'll ask some guys on the first date. That way they know flat out, are they wasting their time or not? Okay? Trust me on this. So why didn't she bring this up early on? You don't expect a guy to bring it up here. And that's going to be pretty awkward, for him to bring it up on the first date here. Come on here, or early on. That's more her territory. So unless she did, and isn't mentioning this, and I would imagine she did, don't blame this guy. Don't give him a hard time about that. Goes on. I know that it's not me personally he doesn't want to marry, but it's how he feels generally. He says there's no difference to him between living together or being married. In that case, I said, if there's no difference to you, let's get married because it's different to me. Well, it is different because the second they say I do, the government's involved. Okay? Now, I don't know where they live, and I don't know about the whole common law marriage where they live. They live together for a certain period of time, and guess what? She's considered to be his common law wife, and then therefore can have access to assets and money and all that shit. But even still, the second they say I do, then guess what? The government's involved, and now he could be in trouble in terms of his assets and things like that. So he obviously, hey, I'll play the role as the great boyfriend and start a family with you and treat her like gold, but I ain't getting married. And you're going to see more and more of that, guys, because there are a lot of guys out there that are out there and watch me, this channel, that are relationship guys. They're serial monogamous, but now they know what they're getting into, both in terms of the legal front, the consequences that could happen if they get divorced, and also the treatment from her, the girlfriend, if they get hitched. Okay, you see enough of this happen enough times, you start to realize, wait a second here, I'm crazy to go into this situation, but hey, you know what? I'll do relationships because a lot of guys like that. And you're going to see more and more of these complaints and things like this going forward. She continues, but he always says no. All around, he has happy examples of relationships. His parents have been together for 40 years and are very happy, as well as more and more of his friends. We plan to start for a baby soon. I ask him, would you rather be without me than with me, married? And he either runs away from an answer / conversation, or lately he started to respond, no. It is you who would rather leave me than be with me as we are now. See? And about that whole thing that she's trying to be logical and say, well, his parents are happily married and he has a lot of friends that are happily married. That doesn't matter. The guy's obviously, he knows what things are like. My parents were happily married. My parents were a great example of a happy marriage. And yet, I have the views I do because I've lived long enough and seen what happened. I also have friends that have good, happy marriages. But again, I have my views and see the world as it is because, enough life experience. So that doesn't matter. I do not know what to do. Is there any other way around this apart from breaking up? If something matters, and this count, okay, then now this goes on to say, this is now the advice columnist responding to her little thing here. She says, the advice columnist, if something matters, and this counts for both of you, be it being married or not being married, having children or not having children, living in the country versus town, etc., then it matters. Whether you compromise that and by how much is a matter of choice. But if you compromise too much, You sow the seed of resentment that grows into a plant of bitter leaves that will leave you picking off and chewing daily. You want to get married, your partner does not. Both valid points. If you can't reach common ground, the problem is not so much that you can't agree on the subject, here marriage, it's that ultimately neither wants to compromise for the other. Also understandable, but it says something, doesn't it? Yeah, exactly. I mean, this guy, that's it. He's not getting married. But for her, yes, I want to get married. Absolutely. So either they're going to come to a compromise. Ultimately, basically, I don't see a compromise being here because this guy, a lot of guys would get worn down, or she would give the ultimatum, or would just leave, and then it would break his heart, and he'd come crawling back. That's what guys would do in the past, but more and more guys aren't falling for that bullshit anymore, And or the other option is that she would just stay in the relationship, hoping to change his mind. And yeah, this person is right here about the resentment that will built up over the years. So ultimately, my opinion, based on if this was a dude coming to me asking my opinion on this, like his girlfriend's bugging the shit out of him about this, and she's never going to change her mind about getting married, and he's not going to change his mind, I'd say break up. Part ways, and this guy should be with someone, if he wants to do relationships, be with someone that, just like him, doesn't want to get married, because there are women out there that are like that, and she can go out and be with some dude that wants to get married, and she can be, at least try to be happy. It goes on. The advice columnist says, I went to Dr. David Hewison, a couple psychiatric psychotherapist, with your problem. His first question is to you, what makes you so angry? Where is the rage coming from? This is about a control thing for each of you, and neither is prepared to give up that control. It's really not that uncommon for one partner in a couple to want to move on to the next stage before the other. But what seems to have happened here is that both of you are so busy defending your own point of view, so busy digging your heels in, that neither can look calmly at the others. Well, I'm willing to bet you the guy is going to be able to look calmly at her situation, but even if he's looking at that and trying to understand where she's coming from emotionally, that's not going to change the fact that he doesn't want to do it, because he probably knows darn well what will happen statistically if he does get hitched. Okay? It's no change for her. They get married, guess what? It's in her favor. Really. And the thing is this, like the guy, I mean, he doesn't want to get married, he can be like, fine. He's in his prime. He's 35 years old. If he has his shit together, that's a man's prime. I'll have no problem getting a replacement for her. And if she's 30 years old, a woman's prime is primarily in her late teens and 20s. But don't get me wrong, you can get plenty of damn good-looking women in the 30s and 40s, in some cases 50s, if they work very hard to take care of themselves and all, but still not the same as their prime in their 20s. So she's still young enough to find another dude. Continues on. I agree that if he says it makes no difference, why not get married to please you? But it clearly does make a difference to him despite what you say. Yeah, well, this psychotherapist is not factoring in what could happen to him and his assets and money and all that if he gets hitched. He's just talking about just how things are as they are together as a couple. But anybody that knows darn well, they know darn well that the second the ring's on her finger, statistically things change. Okay? Her treatment of you changes. The way she takes care of herself will change. I mean, not right away, but give it time. She says, I asked Hewison about your boyfriend's parents' marriage, and if that might have any bearing. He thinks that good parental marriages can be a good example to follow, or sometimes you want to react against them. He wonders what your boyfriend's relationship with his mother is like. Is she domineering? He may be worried about marriage. Hewison also wonders about your experiences. Is marriage a statement for you? Did you have a male figure in your life, maybe your father, that let you down? Is marriage standing in for something? In other words, is marriage a seal on a relationship that makes you feel safer for you? Yeah, it does make women feel safer, because before they get officially hitched and have the government involved, the guy can pretty much take off and, hey, no big deal, right? But once he's hitched, most guys don't want to go through the whole hell of the divorce process and lose half their stuff or the kids and all that, so they're going to stay in it and basically become whipped puppies and become even more unhappy, and that's usually how it goes. And as for the whole parents thing, he could have had a domineering mother and said, "There's no way I'm going to be in this situation like my father was with a domineering mom or domineering wife." He says, "You need to cut your boyfriend some slack that he didn't talk about marriage in the first few months." See? That's really understandable until you're more serious about one another. Equally, you do not bring it up. It's hardly early dating talk. Hewison thinks that the marriage subject carries with it all sorts of wishes and demands about the relationship, and it's a sign that other things to work out. See? He's asking her, did she bring it up early on? Because it was truly important to her, and she was ready for this next stage in her life. Don't waste the guy's time either. Bring it up on the date. And if the guy says, no, I'm not interested in get married, or I'm interested in marriage but not kids, or whatever the hell it is, then she knows. But a lot of women in situations like that will think that, oh, he's just saying that. I can get him to change his mind. And then get mad at him later on down the road because guess what? He meant what he said. What to do? Hewison says a couple can withstand one of them not getting what they want. It happens frequently in relationships. If the other really understands and sympathizes with the other's feelings. Forcing the issue hasn't moved things along. You need to step back, stop talking about it for a bit and think, is this relationship enough to fulfill me even if we don't get married? That's a worthwhile question to ask. But again, this guy's being logical, and he's speaking to a woman who is being emotional, and her emotions are running the show, running her system. So all the logic that this guy's trying to say isn't going to mean shit when her emotions are in overdrive, taking over. If, says Hewison, marriage really matters to you, but your boyfriend still doesn't want to, then that says something. You're both entitled to feel the way you do, but how much you compromise is up to you. So, like I said, guys, this is something you're going to see more and more of. As more guys are waking up to reality as opposed to La La Land and the BS that they're showing in all movies and television about how, you meet the right one and there's fireworks going off and the band or orchestra's playing and it's all wonderful and they get hitched and it's even better even though they have screaming kids and they're, on a tight budget and all that stuff. In real life, in reality, that's not the case, okay? And so many guys are just saying, no way. They'll do relationships, no problem. They may even move in with the girl, but they're not getting hitched. And this is going to become more and more a trend. And so the only way that's ever going to reverse is a time comes where, guess what? Guys aren't hammered so much in the divorce process, and a lot of women are much more better wives and much more loving in the marriage. But given how things are, that's going to be a very, very long time. And don't get me wrong, guys also, if guys are going to get married, a lot of times a lot of the women let themselves go is because the guy stops taking her out, he stops courting her, he stops showing her love and affection and all that. I mean, I got to be fair here and mention that because there's definitely one will impact the other, but one could always say, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Did she start letting herself go and he stopped being attracted to her and therefore stopped hugging her and kissing her and taking her out and all that? Or did she start letting herself go after the ring was on her finger and therefore, back and forth. So, but anyhow, guys, I want to share that with you and just show you what you can expect more and more as time goes on. It's interesting. So, all right, guys, that's it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. And be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.